I want to thank Tyler. Where are you at, Tyler? Yeah. Thanks so much, Liz. Anyone else reading with me? And Joe? Where's Joe? Is Joe here? Joe's not here? Forget Joe.
Okay.
Joe.
Yeah, other
Yeah. Okay. This first poem is called Interior Design by Francis Bacon. And it's the painter, not the philosopher. For a while, every time something appeared in threes, I tried to figure out which one represented Christ. But then you left and didn't return. Then I realized you were my fourth love anyway, and the system was always doomed. The fourth moon growing a beard on its back in case it ever had to turn around. The fourth figure at the base of the cross who wasn't terrifying enough and so went unpainted. The fourth palanquin carried on the backs of four currents of wind without shoulders, but carried somehow in one direction, always further away. I listened to music from my childhood, then from my father's childhood, then from my father's father's childhood, and so on, but there was no safe place to retreat to. After a week, I was pushed back so far, I was listening to some anthropologist on NPR playing a Peruvian bone flute, and I was crying in the car, with the traffic next to me wondering how I could be moved by such an ugly thing, with my hand turning the music louder and louder, as if it could cover my face, as if volume were nothing but size, as if the bone itself and not the breath were growing larger and larger, as if Leviathan were any less alone. The famous poet I picked, I feel like a sellout now because they do not sell Louise Glick here. So you cannot buy this book here. But it's from her book, Meadowlands. It's called Nostos. There was an apple tree in the yard. This would have been 40 years ago. Behind, only meadows, drifts of crocus in the damp grass. I stood at that window, late April, spring flowers in the neighbor's yard. How many times really did the tree flower on my birthday, the exact day, not before, not after? Substitution of the immutable for the shifting, the evolving. Substitution of the image for relentless earth. What do I know of this place? The role of the tree for decades taken by a bonsai. Voices rising from the tennis courts. Fields. Smell of the tall grass, new cut, as one expects of a lyric poet. We look at the world once, in childhood. The rest is memory. Okay, this one's by me. How we say I love you in coal country. Just past an abandoned field, a coal railroad spur line slunk into the woods. High school kids fucked in their cars out there. The cracked ribs of river birches arched over a creek nearby, and condoms limped along its banks. My cousin told me he frequented this spot because of vigilant parents, and because his girlfriend's orgasms were surprisingly quiet. She assured him they were quiet, so the mockingbirds and whippoorwills and whatnot else helped fill up that natural vacuum. I told him, have some respect for yourself. Go shag behind the Red Lobster at least. He called her anthracite eyes, and I used that on a few women myself, but not after his anthracite eyes drowned in a strip pit during some graduation partying. She ran over the cup of that name. He swore they weren't that drunk, but it was too dark. You have to understand, he said, I loved her. I dove and dove. It was only after she drowned I found out he'd been saving for a ring. He never went back to the strip pit, but he held a vigil at the railroad spur. There he placed a box full of money. I never asked how much he'd saved, in the creek, and cast it on its way, like an incombustible Viking funeral. I squinted and stared up at the old coal tipple until the stars looked like man-made lights, and the mine was operational again. He said he was sure if the birds would ever shut up, he could hear her. And this next one is by Alan Hamza was my pick, and dear friend. It's called A Refugee, the Word. When you come across something that gives you a feeling of going on, do you acknowledge it to others or keep a secret of it, like the secret of a soiled handkerchief? This should not be a question, I realize. I can't help myself. I am so in ardor with the future that I call it flute, never a flute. I should return to the parenthesis, knock, enter when the door opens, sit at the long, solid table, and carve, "There is an explanation for everything." Signed, A Refugee. People think cattle and carts and mud and whales when the hairs of their ears are ruffled by a refugee, the word. I disappoint with car and escape to sea. I do not disappoint with articles and accent. Everything in life is so-so, which absolves me my opening salvo, which makes me think of Cavafy and the message I dreamt for him. Thank you.
Thank you, Corey. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Tyler, for organizing this. This is great. The first poem I'm going to read is called Exile, a Suite. 1. The apple orchard lives in childhood. I live alone. 3 years, no pleasure, but pleasure. Green days, blue days, pleasure over pleasure, a finite onion. 2. Purr of plum, give me. Give stark medallions slated for extinction. Father, extinction is for pussified hearts. The weaving must go on if we are to wear clothes. Thusly we thicken. 3. The right solitude lives in Bosnia. The wrong solitude lives in Herzegovina. No, it's the other way around. Wait, my country is falling apart again. 4. Nothing we own is on Mars. Nothing at a desperate distance. Curl around holes. A good-sized hole improves many things. Unlike chamomile, roses are flowers to be looked at. When as in silks my love goes, when as the finite pleasure barks at forever, crumble, disappear, empire exit. This next poem is the one that I chose by someone else, and it is Marriage by Gregory Corso. It's kind of long, but it's a fun poem. I haven't read it before, so I hope it's going to be fun for everybody. Marriage. Should I get married? Should I be good? Astound the girl next door with my velvet suit and Faustus hood? Don't take her to the movies, but to cemeteries. Tell all about werewolf bathtubs and fork clarinets, then desire her and kiss her and all the preliminaries. And she going just so far, and I understanding why. Not getting angry, saying, you must feel, it's beautiful to feel. Instead, take her in my arms, lean against an old crooked tombstone, and woo her the entire night, the constellations in the sky. When she introduces me to her parents, back straightened, hair finely combed, strangled by a tie, should I sit knees together on their third-degree sofa and not ask, where's the bathroom? How else to feel other than I am, often thinking Flash Gordon's soap. Oh, how terrible it must be for a young man seated before a family, and the family thinking, we never saw him before. He wants our Mary Lou. After tea and homemade cookies, they ask, what do you do for a living? Should I tell them? Would they like me then? Say, all right, get married. We're losing a daughter, but we're gaining a son. And should I then ask, where's the bathroom? Oh God, and the wedding. All her family and her friends and only a handful of mine, all scroungy and bearded, just waiting to get at drinks and food. And the priest, he looking at me if I he looking at me. So I should say that I printed this out from the internet, and I noticed when I was just scanning it that there are some typos. So this might be one of those. There might be, it seems like there's something missing, as if I masturbated. I'm not sure. He looking at me if I masturbated, asking me, do you take this woman for your lawful wedded wife? And I, trembling what to say, pie glue. I kissed the bride, all those corny men slapping me on the back. She's all yours, boy, ha ha ha. And in their eyes you could see some obscene honeymoon going on. Then all that absurd rice and clanky cans and shoes, Niagara Falls, horrors of us, husbands, wives, flowers, chocolates, all streaming into cozy hotels, all going to do the same thing tonight. The indifferent clerk, he knowing what was going to happen, the lobby zombies, they knowing what, the whistling elevator man, he knowing, the winking bellboy knowing, everybody knowing. I'd be almost inclined not to do anything. Stay up all night, stare that hotel clerk in the eye, screaming, I deny honeymoon, I deny honeymoon, running rampant into those almost climactic suites, yelling, radio belly, cat shovel. Oh, I'd live in Niagara forever, in a dark cave beneath the falls. I'd sit there, the mad honeymooner, devising ways to break marriages, a scourge of bigamy, a saint of divorce. But I should get married. I should be good. How nice it'd be to come home to her and sit by the fireplace and she in the kitchen, aproned, young and lovely, wanting my baby. And so happy about me, she burns the roast beef and comes crying to me, and I get up from my big papa chair saying, Christmas teeth, radiant brains, apple death. God, what a husband I'd make. Yes, I should get married. So much to do, like sneaking into Mr. Jones's house late at night and cover his golf clubs with 1920 Norwegian books, like hanging a picture of Rimbaud on the lawnmower, like passing Tanu Tuva postage stamps all over the picket fence, like when Mrs. Kindhead comes to collect for the community chest, grab her and tell her there are unfavorable omens in the sky. And when the mayor comes to get my vote, tell him, when are you going to stop people killing whales? And when the milkman comes, leave him a note in the bottle, penguin dust, bring me penguin dust, I want penguin dust. Yet if I should get married and it's Connecticut and snow, and she gives birth to a child and I'm sleepless, worn, up for nights, head bowed against a quiet window, the past behind me, finding myself in the most common of situations, a trembling man, knowledged with responsibility, not twig smear, not Roman coin soup. Oh, what that would be like. Surely I'd give it for a nipple, a rubber Tacitus, for a rattle bag of broken Bach records, tack Della Francesca all over its crib, sew the Greek alphabet on its bib, and build for its playpen a roofless Parthenon. No, I doubt I'd be that kind of father. Not rural, not snow, no quiet window, but hot, smelly New York City, 7 flights up, roaches and rats in the walls, a fat Reichian wife screeching over potatoes, get a job, and 5 nose-running brats in love with Batman, and the neighbors all toothless and dry-haired, like those hag masses of the 18th century, all wanting to come in and watch TV. The landlord wants his rent, grocery store, Blue Cross gas, and electric Knights of Columbus. Impossible to lie back and dream. Telephone snow, go sparking. No, I should not get married, and I should never get married. But imagine if I were to marry a beautiful, sophisticated woman, tall and pale, wearing an elegant black dress and long black gloves, holding a cigarette holder in one hand and highball in the other, and we lived high up a penthouse with a huge window from which we could see all of New York and even farther on clearer days. No, I can't imagine myself married to that pleasant prison dream. Oh, but what about love? I forget love. Not that I'm incapable of love, it's just that I see love as odd as wearing shoes. I never wanted to marry a girl who was like my mother, and Ingrid Bergman was always impossible, and there may be a girl now, but she's already married, and I don't like men, but there's got to be somebody, because what if I'm 60 years old and not married, all alone in furnished room with pee stains on my underwear, and everybody else is married, all in the universe married, but me. Yet well I know that were a woman possible as I am possible, then marriage would be possible. Like she, in her lonely alien god waiting her Egyptian lover, so I wait, bereft of 2,000 years, and the bath of life. All right, here's another one, the second of my poems. It's called Summertime. An old man tames a squirming pipe. 2 shirtless men are playing chess. 5 are handling the cards with their tongue-licked fingers. Seagulls come in many colors, white, black. Like sporadic protocols of lazy nations, they patrol the skies and determine the quota of the day's catch. 2 women are drinking midday beer and complaining about the lack of vanilla ice cream cones at the corner store. The smell of fried fish and olive drizzle chard tickles the noses of soccer-enchanted kids. A woman puts a crate of freshly picked figs on a sun-inflamed bench to dry. Her husband is going trash bin to trash bin in search of plastic and cans. The grown son trims his toenails under a tamarind tree. The overweight man, fond of his bicycle, buys groceries, tells the lady at the checkout, "Who can understand women? I got married late." Firefighting aircraft are taking off for Turkey. The locals are proud. It is Saturday, the wedding day. The guests go to the grooms, then the brides, then the church, then the reception hall. The minimum gift is 100 euros. Tourists are stalking the promenade, taking pictures of a blue 1984 Renault 4. The pizzeria on the south side of town has new oil-resistant tablecloths. It employs 2 waiters and 1 waitress. The post office is closed. And now we come to Will Clark's poem, who is going to be reading next, the inimitable Will Clark. Literally inimitable. The title of this poem is Engaging with the Artifice. A man disassembles an earthed engine, places each part in organized rows, thinks if he can isolate the truest thought, he might live forever, until he finds smaller engines nested inside the components of the larger one. They look like insect thoraxes, legless, wingless, headless. And in those too, he finds even smaller ones, like hinged and fluted flecks of steel fleas. Looking at them under a magnifying glass, each one appears to be its own tightly bundled universe, worlds containing endless other worlds. He curses the limitations of his eyes and hands, unable to deftly handle the minuscule parts, until he flings the entire useless apparatus against the ground, opens the sluice gates to flood the field, and wash away all the shattered parts. But some take root like sun-warmed seeds, sprout steel stems out of the moist earth. They dot the black fields like fists, with black blooms tonguing the horizon. And next up is Will Clark. Thank you.